or investment attracting investments in Uttarakhand is concerned, I'm very happy to see that Priya ji is with us from Invest India, and they know what Uttarakhand and along with Invest India, what we have done for last a couple of years. I think a lot of initiatives have been taken by government of Uttarakhand to make Uttarakhand an attractive destination, and also to see that major investments come to Uttarakhand in the sectors in which we have some strengths, or which sectors are important to us in terms of employment generation, as well as they are based on the resources we have. Because the initial, industrialization, Vikas Gargji knows that very well, it started in the year 2003 when we got a special incentive from Government of India, and that was basically driven by the manufacturing. And most of the industries that came, they belong to the manufacturing sector, and the GDP of the state, the secondary sector contributes about 50% of the total GDP of the state. And recently, Niti Aayog team was here in Uttarakhand, and they were discussing on various sectors. So they said ki you already have achieved a lot of, our manufacturing contribution to GDP is about 34%, which is highest in the country. So even most industrialized states like Gujarat, they have lower, contribution of manufacturing in their GDP. Uttarakhand has the highest. So he told us why you want more manufacturing. Yours is a green state, and you should attract investments in the services sector, and you should, promote your agriculture, organic, and other sectors also. So shuru se jab he was advisor to CII also. So 2003 में when he came to Uttarakhand, CII arranged a workshop, और हम लोग जब स्टार्ट कर ही रहे थे कि हमारा पैकेज आया है तो कैसे इन्वेस्टमेंट यहाँ पे प्रमोट करना है, तो ये हमारा मानना था कि मैन्युफैक्चरिंग के लिए हम लोग नहीं है, और कोई नहीं जानता था कि उत्तराखंड में इतना बड़ा इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन पॉसिबल है, बट इट हैपेंड। और मैं बाकी डिपार्टमेंट्स को ये बोलता हूँ सबको कि भाई हम लोग अगर अच्छा कर रहे हैं तो एग्रीकल्चर क्यों नहीं वो सेक्टर इतना अच्छा कर रहा है, या दूसरे सर्विसेज सेक्टर और टूरिज्म, व्हाई दे आर नॉट डूइंग। अभी भी जो हम लोग इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रमोशन एक्टिविटीज हैं, हम लोग सभी सेक्टर्स में कर रहे हैं। जो हमारा ऑर्गेनाइज्ड इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रमोशन एक्टिविटीज है वो हमारा स्टार्ट हुआ इन ईयर 2018 ओनली, और 2018 में फर्स्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट समिट हमने किया, जब हम लोग थोड़ा सीरियसली ये प्लान कर रहे थे कि कैसे हम लोग इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रमोशन उत्तराखंड राज्य में हमको करना चाहिए, हमारा पॉलिसीज होना चाहिए, क्या इकोसिस्टम होना चाहिए। तो वो जो एक एक्सरसाइज थी दैट स्टार्टेड ओनली इन 2018। उससे जो भी इन्वेस्टमेंट आया दैट वाज बेसिकली ड्रिवन बाय द इंसेंटिव्स अवेलेबल और द टैक्स एग्जेम्पशंस अवेलेबल। तो ये इसमें हमने इन्वेस्ट इंडिया के साथ भी पार्टनरशिप करी, और वी पार्टनर्ड विद CII एंड अदर एसोसिएशंस, इवन ASSOCHAM वाज आवर पार्टनर। तो ये हम लोगों को भी ये लगता है कि अब कुछ ऐसे सेक्टर्स हैं, नीश सेक्टर्स हैं, जिसके तरफ हमको आगे बढ़ना है, और उसमें फूड प्रोसेसिंग ऑफ कोर्स इज वन ऑफ द मेजर सेक्टर। इसके अलावा वेलनेस एंड टूरिज्म इतना यहाँ पर होना चाहिए था, इको टूरिज्म का डेवलपमेंट अभी स्टार्ट हो गया है। ये मैं जरूर कहना चाहूंगा कि लास्ट कपल ऑफ इयर्स वी हैव सीन लॉट ऑफ टॉप क्वालिटी जो हमारे वेलनेस इन्वेस्टमेंट्स दे आर कमिंग। हमारे जो 5 स्टार होटल्स हैं, पहले यहाँ पे एक भी नहीं था, धीरे धीरे यहाँ पे बहुत सारे 5 स्टार होटल्स आ गए, और अभी 3 5 स्टार होटल्स का यहाँ पे इंटेंशंस आ गए हैं, दे आर इन द प्रोसेस ऑफ स्टेइंग देयर होटल्स। तो ये टूरिज्म सेक्टर में काफी डिफरेंस आया है। कुछ बड़े चेन्स हैं जो अभी जो हमारे मिडिल क्लास के लोग हैं, जिनको बजट होटल्स का चेन बोलते हैं, अभी भी क्या हो गया कि 5 स्टार्स आने लगे हैं, लेकिन जो अभी मिडिल क्लास आता है उनके लिए कोई बहुत स्टैंडर्डाइज हमारे पास अकोमोडेशंस नहीं है। तो वो सेगमेंट को केटर करने के लिए अभी मुझे लगता है काफी सारा इन्वेस्टमेंट उस सेक्टर में आएगा, विच विल केटर टू द मिडिल क्लास पीपल, बजट होटल्स काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स। और उसके अलावा होम स्टेज बहुत तेजी से यहाँ पे ग्रो हो रहे हैं, और होम स्टे में उत्तराखंड इज वन ऑफ द लीडिंग स्टेट्स which is promoting home stays in a big way. उस दिशा में हम आगे जाएंगे। ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस के बारे में मैं ये कहना चाहूंगा कि वी आर टेकिंग इट अप on the top priority. All the governments, successive governments, they have taken this exercise on top priority. और हम लोगों का जो पोजीशन है, प्रिया जी इससे सहमत होंगी कि being in the top 10 is very challenging आज का जो पोजीशन है, because each state is doing, मतलब पूरी तरह से सब लगे हुए हैं कि अपना जो भी इसमें जरूरत है।
Sir, we lost you in between.
I think Nautiyal ji is muted as of now. So Nautiyal ji, please unmute yourself.
कहाँ से हो गया? नहीं, it's unmuted only. मुझे लगता है कुछ
Now it is okay, sir.
connectivity का issue होगा।
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Now you can hear. Okay. So जब इंटीग्रेशन नेशनल विंडो सिस्टम के साथ में हुआ है तो एक्चुअल पोजीशन स्टेट्स में पता लगी है कि किस स्टेट सिस्टम है रोबस्ट है। तो हम लोग का सक्सेसफुली हम लोग ने इंटीग्रेट कर लिया है। इट मींस अवर सिस्टम हम लोग तैयार हैं कि सबको दिखाने के लिए कि हमारा सिस्टम कैसा है। इंडस्ट्री से हम जरूर चाहेंगे कि देखिए बहुत सारे लोग मैं देखता हूं कि क्यों सिंगल विंडो सिस्टम्स फेल होते हैं, और ये अभी भी एक धारणा बनी हुई है कि हर लोग बोलते हैं कि ये काम नहीं करता है, इट डजंट वर्क, ये होता नहीं है, और लोग दूसरे चैनल्स के माध्यम से कराने में इंटरेस्टेड होते हैं। उसमें मैंने जब देखा है, पिछले 5-6 साल से मैं लगातार बात कर रहा हूँ, सिस्टम काम करता है। जो लोग एक्चुअली जाते हैं सिस्टम में उनको महसूस होता होगा कि ये सिस्टम काम करता है, चलता है। कुछ लोग क्या है, एक तो बिना सिस्टम को देखे, बिना यूज किए, बिना एक्चुअली देखे कि इसमें क्या क्या फैसिलिटीज, वो कमेंट कर देते हैं कि ये काम नहीं करता है। दूसरे बहुत सारे प्लेयर्स ऐसे हैं, क्योंकि एंटरप्रेन्योर्स खुद नहीं करते हैं अप्लाई, दे एंगेज सम पीपल, वो चाहे सीएस हो या उनके कुछ एम्प्लॉयज हो, चाहे जो भी हो। समहाउ मुझे लगता है कि उनको भी ये इंटरेस्ट नहीं है कि ये सिस्टम काम करे, ट्रांसपेरेंसी हो, और क्योंकि वो सब उनका फिर रोल कम हो जाता है। उनका इंटरेस्ट मुझे लगता है इसमें होता है कि वो कोई सिस्टम नहीं है, ये तो हमको कराना पड़ेगा, कहीं कुछ देना पड़ेगा, पर्सनली जाना पड़ेगा। तो ये जरा इंडस्ट्री को भी देखना पड़ेगा बार बार कि सिस्टम्स के ऊपर जाएं और इसको एक्चुअली यूज करें। तो मुझे लगता है फीडबैक फिर हमारा इम्प्रूव तभी होगा। अदरवाइज एक जनरल परसेप्शन हमने बना लिया है कि सिंगल विंडो सिस्टम्स जो होते हैं वो काम नहीं करते हैं, और हमें इसको, इंडस्ट्री को और हमको मिलके इस सिस्टम को चलाना पड़ेगा। ये नहीं हो सकता कि सिर्फ कुछ इश्यूज आते हैं, नो डाउट, कहीं भी कोई भी नया सिस्टम बनता है उसमें प्रॉब्लम्स आते हैं। कई डिपार्टमेंट्स भी इंटरेस्टेड नहीं होते हैं कि वो बहुत फेथफुली और बिल्कुल रिलीजियसली फॉलो करें कि सिस्टम्स को सक्सेसफुल करना ही है हमें। लेकिन वो खत्म हो जाएगा अगर इंडस्ट्री एंड इंडस्ट्री डिपार्टमेंट्स बोथ वर्क टुगेदर और ये देखें कि हमको इसी के थ्रू सब कराना है और इस सिस्टम्स को सक्सेसफुल करके ही दिखाना है। तो मेरा रिक्वेस्ट ये रहेगा एसोचैम से, और गर्ग साहब आपके साथ जुड़े, ये बहुत अच्छी बात है, बिकॉज सीआईआई में भी आप जब थे तो काफ़ी सपोर्ट हमें मिला है। और सीआईआई से मुझे इस बारे में कहने में कोई संकोच नहीं है कि वो नेशनल एक चैम्बर होने की वजह से it is a responsible organization. Similarly ASSOCHAM is a very responsible organization, और हम लोग आसानी से ये चीज़ों में नहीं पड़ते हैं कि ये नहीं चलेगा। मीन्स हम लोग का कोलेबोरेशन, हम लोगों का साथ साथ चलने का जो एक नज़रिया होगा आगे चल के, मुझे लगता है हम सब मिलके इन सिस्टम्स को ठीक करेंगे। ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस में हमने जो एजेंडा थे, जितने भी 301 पॉइंट्स थे, मैक्सिमम हमने अचीव कर लिए हैं। 5-6 पॉइंट है जो थोड़े से लॉन्ग टर्म है, जैसे कैडेस्ट्रल मैप है, रेवेन्यू रिकॉर्ड्स के इंटीग्रेशन है विद उसके जो सारे डेटाबेस के साथ में इंटीग्रेशन होना है, उसका म्यूटेशन का होना है, और जो रेवेन्यू रिकॉर्ड्स के साथ में उसका होना है। सिर्फ उसमें थोड़े से एरियाज हैं जिनमें हमें थोड़ा सा और टाइम लगेगा, बट वी होप कि विद इन 1 or 2 years वी विल बी अचीविंग ऑलमोस्ट ऑल द पॉइंट्स। थोड़े से लॉ रिलेटेड एक दो पॉइंट्स हैं, अगर आप चाहेंगे तो सौरभ पॉइंट्स को ले लेंगे कि कौन से हमारे बचे हैं। अदरवाइज हम लोगों ने सारे सिस्टम्स ऑनलाइन बना लिए हैं, सारे डिपार्टमेंट्स के सर्विसेज ऑनलाइन हैं और ऑनलाइन सर्विसेज सब लोग अवेल कर सकते हैं। दूसरा, इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रमोशन के लिए हमने अभी परसों ही इन्वेस्ट इंडिया के साथ भी एक डिस्कशन हुआ है सेक्रेटरी लेवल पे, और PLI स्कीम्स जो आई हैं उसमें हम लोग आपका भी सपोर्ट चाहेंगे कि जो हमारे मेजर प्लेयर्स हैं वो लोग PLI जो स्कीम्स हैं गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने जो लॉन्च करी हैं उसमें ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोग आए, आगे आए। और कुछ ऐसे प्लेयर्स हैं जो आर एक्चुअली बेस्ड इन उत्तराखंड बट दे हैव प्रेजेंस इन अदर स्टेट्स आल्सो, लार्जर ग्रुप्स, they can consider Uttarakhand on first priority. If they are present in Uttarakhand, then their expansion plans are actually directed towards Uttarakhand only. Because हमारा जो अनुभव है और आप सबका भी अनुभव होगा कि उत्तराखंड में जो एक्सपीरियंस है, इंडस्ट्री एक्सपीरियंस है, खास करके मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में, वो बहुत अच्छा है। हमारे यहाँ पे जो इकोसिस्टम है इट इज़ रियली गुड। बहुत सारे स्टेट्स में कई सारे इश्यूज हैं, वो सब यहाँ पे नहीं है। जो प्रॉब्लम्स होती हैं लेबर से रिलेटेड प्रॉब्लम्स हो या और पॉलिटिकल इंटरफेरेंस हो और भी बहुत सारे जो शांति व्यवस्था होती है, लॉ एंड ऑर्डर एंड एवरीथिंग, तो इकोसिस्टम बहुत अच्छा है जो लोग यहाँ पे कर रहे हैं। हमें, मेरे को बताते हुए बहुत अच्छा है कि हमारा जो IDS स्कीम है जो गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने हमें दिया है, इंडस्ट्रियल डेवलपमेंट स्कीम, जिसमें 30% प्लांट एंड मशीनरी पे 5 करोड़ तक का कैपिटल सब्सिडी मिलता है और 5 साल के लिए उसमें जो इंश्योरेंस प्रीमियम्स है उसमें छूट है। उसमें हमारे पास करीब 750 एप्लीकेशंस आए हैं अभी तक, और 750 एप्लीकेशंस में से अबाउट 50% ऑफ द एप्लीकेंट्स आर दोज हु आर अंडरगोइंग एक्सपेंशन। ये साफ दिखाता है कि जो एग्जिस्टिंग इंडस्ट्रीज हैं वो लोग भी यहाँ पे लगातार एक्सपेंशन कर रहे हैं। तो माहौल अच्छा है और आगे चल के हम लोग ASSOCHAM के साथ मिलके और इसको आगे लेके जाएंगे, ऐसे मुझे पूरी उम्मीद है। मैं आप सबका बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूँ। थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर ज्वाइनिंग। थैंक यू विकास जी, थैंक यू फॉर इनवाइटिंग मी।
Thank you, Nautiyal sir,
Namaskar.
thank you, Nautiyal sir, for taking out your valuable time. And in fact, Nautiyal Saab has been, I would say, the torch bearer for the cause of the industry all along. And we have interacted with Nautiyal Saab at various levels. And the industry department of Uttarakhand has been working very proactively under his leadership. And we have always found Nautiyal Saab as very supportive of the industry, and he is always able to understand the various issues which are brought out to him. And in fact, the proactive approach which the state under him has taken, the industry department, it is really extraordinary. And the EY team and his team which is working with him is also very proactive. And with my own experience, the various issues which have been taken up with him repeatedly have all been addressed very well. And thank you, sir, for taking out your time at a very short notice. We know that you have a Prime Minister's visit to Uttarakhand on 5th, and whole of the Uttarakhand state is busy in the preparations. And thank you so much, sir, for taking out your time out of your busy schedule. And certainly we would be interacting with you more. और नौटियाल साहब, बाकी CII में मैं CII में अब भी हूँ।
अभी हैं, yes, yes.
As a past year CII में, but obviously ASSOCHAM में
आज ASSOCHAM से हैं.
I am wearing a different cap.
He is a co-chairman of our Uttarakhand State Development Council, and Sri Surendra Kumar Sharma ji is the chairman of State Council of Uttarakhand.
Congratulations, sir. Thank you.
So,
and सौरभ हमारे साथ EOD टीम से सौरभ हमारे साथ रहेंगे, so he can take question answers if any. So he'll be with you, and I'm sorry I'll have to leave. Thank you very much. Yeah?
May I request Sri Surendra Kumar Sharma ji to share some remarks? Thereafter, we can move for this panel discussion.
Yeah, first of all, would like to thank Mr. Nautiyal for being over here and giving us in fact, guidance and setting up the context as well. And so that this being the first webinar of in the series of Atmanirbhar Bharat and then ease of doing business. In fact, he has given very good points in terms of how we are going to equate the hilly districts versus the plain districts and how the government is working on those directions. Same way has also given us a guidance that which all sectors like more on the service sector, which needs to be like worked on, though the manufacturing itself contributes to around 45 to 50% of the total revenue of the state. So I think he has given already great, I'll say he in fact worked as a torchbearer right now, and he has set up the entire context so we can really move ahead with this program. Though I can formally, in fact, would like to welcome all of you from ASSOCHAM and on behalf of Patanjali Food and Herbal Park for this first webinar. We would like to also state that Uttarakhand, the state, has actually moved up very fast since the beginning of 2000 year. Because it started in 2000 and in a span of just 20 years, the state has moved to greater heights. I'll say because getting to the 9th position and then maintaining 10th or 11th position in ease of doing business is really very tough, as what Mr. Notial was also talking about, because all the states, they are competing and there are around 10 to 11 points which are being looked into while actually giving a ranking to the state as well as the economy. So and these points starts from like start of the business or doing with the permits and then coming out with enforcement contracts or maybe paying taxes and those kind of things, which are covering up the entire gamut of the industry as well as the people who are living over there. So it's not easy getting a rank of 11th position and maintaining the first position in the hilly states is really tough. But I am sure there are still a lot of things which can be done in terms of the single window clearance system or maybe the availability of the manpower, and then ensuring that the Land Acquisition Act gets some reforms in it. And I'm sure with this today's discussion, what we are going to have, where we have eminent speakers from the industry as well as from government and then the academia, which will throw up a good conversation in terms of discussion, what all things can be done and how we can give some input to the state authorities in terms of improvement, as well as the industry can also work in hand with the government for getting a better, I'll say, healthy environment for ease of doing business in Uttarakhand.
Thank you very much, sir. Now we are going forward this towards the panel discussion, and we have very eminent galaxy of experts who will be sharing their views at this session, including Madam Priya Rawat, Vice President and Head Global Investor Outreach, Invest India; Shri Surendra Kumar Sharma ji, Chairman Uttarakhand State Development Council of ASSOCHAM and Chief Executive Officer, Patanjali Food and Herbal Park Private Limited; Mr. Vikas Garg, Co-Chairman of ASSOCHAM Uttarakhand State Development Council and Managing Director, Forest Polymer Private Limited; Mr. Yashpal Sardana, Plant Head, Haridwar, Hero Motor Corp; and our session moderator, Mr. Ajay Rao, Partner Rab and Rab Associates. And we also have Mr. Saurabh from EODB team from Department of Industry, Government of Uttarakhand. So I would like to request Dr. Ajay Rao to kindly take the things forward for this session.
Thank you so much, Avinash, and thank you, Mr. Sharma, for that elaborate opening of what issues we think we should cover when we talk about ease of doing business. I think the initial groundwork has already been laid by Mr. Nautiyal, who very eloquently told us how well Uttarakhand is doing. And I think the scope of why we are here today is how we can make sure we move up from position 9 and not just stay at 9 or 10. And with that, I'm very happy to share that as a lawyer working in this state, I get a lot of questions about people wanting to buy land, people wanting to set up industries, people wanting to set up, like Mr. Nautiyal mentioned, hotels. And the fact that people are looking towards Uttarakhand shows that we have done something right. right? The question now is, how do we make sure they don't go anywhere else? And with that in mind, I would like to start with my first question to maybe Ms. Rawat. You know, Mr. Nautal briefly touched on this point that people don't use the system, but they complain about the system, right? And how, from your point of view, when you look for making sure investments happen, making sure that parties come and actually put their money and are comfortable in the state, what are the kind of major roadblocks that the authorities are facing in facilitating investments in Uttarakhand? And I'm asking you because I'll turn to Mr. Saurabh in a bit, but I'm starting with you because you will give us a different kind of perspective, and then we'll come to the authorities as well. And what are the challenges in foreign investment, domestic investment? How are these issues being tackled in Uttarakhand, and how we can improve them?
Thank you, Ajay. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate ASSOCHAM on this new development, and I wish them the best for their new council in the state. And in fact, this session is coming at the right time because we've all been fighting a pandemic, and all this while we've been charting out our own unique trajectory of showing remarkable resilience. And this entire resilience was driven by measures taken by the government, but it was also contributed by the way the industry has fought this sort of these unprecedented challenges. When you talk about the kind of challenges the foreign investors are looking at, and if they are different from the domestic investors, I'd like to highlight that, of course, for all the foreign investments, the FDI policy comes into play. But once they are registered in the country, they are treated as as any domestic investment would be. So by far, neither the government of India or the state government would be differentiating between a private foreign company or a domestic company. But I do understand for foreign companies, and basis our experience, we have seen that India is a vast country, and our states are as big as some of the countries, and we have of course that also presents a lot of opportunities, but it also poses a lot of challenges for companies who would like to navigate through the vast number of opportunities available. Each state will have its own policies and sort of processes in place. There's so much for an investor to sort of navigate, come through, be it the culture, be it the language, be it the processes. So for that, what we've now been focusing as Government of India, if you recall, in the last budget speech, the finance minister had announced a setting up of an investment clearance cell, which will provide an end-to-end facilitation to companies looking to invest in India. And I'm happy to inform everybody that in September of this year, we did launch the National Single Window, which is also a single platform to help companies identify and obtain all approvals they require for setting their business in India. And as of now, we have 18 central departments and 9 states who have come on board. In fact, Uttarakhand has been one of the early movers, and they have been quite supportive in this. They were one of the states who were enrolled in this national single window system in the first phase. By the end of this year, we are hoping to add another 14 central ministries as well as 5 states. This platform is going to be doing away with all the multiple applications that are applicable to an investor. They have to look for different portals. They have to upload different information. What it does is, one, it has a know your approval service that it is giving. We have a very intelligent visa that will give you all information on what are the approvals required. And basis a simple questionnaire, the portal suggests the kind of forms they would be required to fill. And this form also we have simplified and made it into one common registration form, so that the user does not have to fill in multiple places. Then we have a very simple applicant dashboard that can help them in tracking all of these queries. And we've also ensured that they don't have to upload the same document multiple times. And hence we provided a document repository for them. We are adding more and more states and departments, and the extensive testing is happening. And as Mr. Nautiyal had suggested, we need a lot of feedback from the industry. So I will request ASSOCHAM to encourage their members who are looking at expanding, setting up new facilities. They should make use of this single window portal, so that we also get to know the kind of feedback we have from the industry. And we would like to, and very well, we look forward to hearing from you on the feedback that you have. I think this onboarding will sort of bring that clarity that everybody keeps complaining on. We have to be running, an investor keeps on running from pillar to post, and even if we have a single window, it is opening up into multiple doors, and it is not essentially a single window. So look forward to feedback from the industry on that. Over to you, Ajay.
Thank you so much. And I think that's very well put in terms of what the government has done. And I think a lot of queries that come from foreign investors today, the first query that we start with is how many approvals will be required. And I think if we pass that threshold, we obviously ease into, we can increase the way we go about it, improve the way we go about it, but that is the biggest threshold, is the number of approvals required. And earlier, like Mr. Nautiyal also put, with chartered accountants or lawyers used to have this entire checklist that they used to provide to clients saying, these are the kind of approvals, and then there will be a state-wise checklist. And I think this national cell will help us also not, making such long checklists. I'll just quickly turn to Mr. Saurabh. Are you there, sir?
Yes, of course, Mr.
Yes.
Ajay.
Yes. So thank you for joining us. I want to ask you, is briefly touched upon by Ms. Rawat. When this national system is then integrated into our single window clearance system that Uttarakhand already has, what are the kind of benefits we see? And I'll put two questions together for you. One is that, the portal exists, everything exists, but we want to know what the law says. And that comes to, are all the notifications accessible? Are all the government orders accessible? Do we have all the notifications of the applicable stamp duty? What is the circle rate? Very, very, on the ground stuff. So will we be integrating these as well into the single window clearance, where people can actually see this is the approval required and this is what the law says? And what are your thoughts on how we will be integrating this national system with the domestic system, with the state system?
Thank you. So I would start with that. The national single window has just come up. It's not even has completed 1 year. So and we are among the pioneer states to integrate it with the the national single window, which will be supporting the domestic as well as the foreign investors. However, since 2015, the state already had its own single window. Gradually, it has now matured enough, I would say. And it is from the start to the end, we facilitate through these systems. So definitely the ease of doing business program has played the instrumental role in in maturing the single window system, and it's gradually now moving towards the timeline adherence and the getting the clearance on time and with due courses. So the thing is, when an investor comes in, as Priyaji rightly said, that he will be or she'll be getting a set of questionnaire. What kind of the information is available there? Based on that, the investor gets the information. So how this information have been built. So we have developed a repository of the data on the information, which is, you know, keeps on updating on a daily basis. So we keeps track on that. Once the investor comes in, wherever the investor comes, it will have to come on ground in any of the district of in any of the state. So when it comes, it requires the approvals from the district administrations. Various government approvals are there. Like you rightly said, if I put it on a investor life cycle, I would say. So the first thing the investor would require the land parcel, whether the land availability is there, what are those rates, how the land allotment system works in the state, particularly are the leasing system is good enough. So these all details would be there and is already there in our single window system. Pertaining to the departments, we have devised in its, you know, or bifurcated in 6 components majorly, I would say. Let me get into the little detail. So all those 6 components are basically the 3 of the, you know, the cycles, we would say: the pre-establishment, then the post-establishment, and then the you know, pre-establishment, post-establishment, and then the after care of the investments. So, since the land, getting the land, getting the land registered, paying stamp duties, getting utility services, environment clearances, labor laws, contract enforcements, and many other services in between. If they fall, the service category, the information which the state single window provides through the national single window also, it has now been integrated, is the service collaterals. Basically, we would say the standardized operating procedures are there. The set of documents which would be required to get to avail that service particularly is there. We have notified those services, what the fee would be charging by the department. The fee details are there. Then the inspections are there, is the inspection checklist is there, is the you know, the final set of NOC or acknowledgement is there. So these all the services, approximately currently we have more than 150 services of approximately 25 plus state government departments on our single window, and gradually it is now integrated with national single, so it is accessible. All the services and the details are in public domain. One can register there and get the service details, and based on service details, investor can plan their investment in, you know, phase wise manner, like what is he or she, you know, would require a pre-establishment stage and the post operations and all, until the disbursements of the claims for the investor incentives. All the details and the processes have been notified in terms of law. When we say that all the systems are compliant to the policies and the acts available in the state, and the as well as the if Government of India policies or notifications are there. So we are compliant to the laws. So in ease of doing business also, we covers the 2 to 3 categories majorly, broadly. One is the policy reforms, like when we go with it, then the systems, and then the later and the most important part comes in, which is the feedback. Actually, the implementation, actual execution in the field, implementation, and how whether the actual user of that particular service, which the reform has been done in terms of paper, then the system, and actually is he getting that service within the timelines? Are there any physical touch points on ground? Have been they called by any of the officers of the department? Is he able to pay the fees online? So these are the challenges, and if he gets the all satisfactory surveys, then we map it, and that's how the DPIIT ranks other states, and the EODB ranking takes place based on that feedback only, 100%. If the investor is happy, the state's rank will be impacted. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
That's very helpful. And because you mentioned timelines, I think I'll ask Mr. Sharma to share his views on, we've entered the system, we've applied for the approvals, and now, there are these ground realities that you need a Patwari report or you need a Tehsil report, or like you mentioned, at a local state level, you need these reports before the system can move. And therefore, would stricter timelines help? Would self-declarations help? Would self-attestation of documents help? Can we say, for example, I need to do a land survey and submit my report? Can we have independent assessors doing it? What are the kind of problems do we, Mr. Sharma, that we face on the ground? And how can we help the government in speeding up the timelines for these approvals?
I think a very valid question, what you have put, Mr. Ajar. But before that, before answering what is exactly on the ground, I would like to first make everybody aware that, see, Uttarakhand government has really done a wonderful work in terms of getting the right systems into the place. The single window clearance system is actually working. Let me tell you, whatever I could see on the system is something which shows a very good significant improvement when vis-a-vis if you see it from say 2015 onwards. Now, what is happening is there is a very good dashboard which is available on the website as well. The dashboard talks about how many timelines are adhered, how many are violated, those kind of things are there. At the same time, there are different departments which are there in the single window clearance system. But what is happening is some of the departments, they are working very well. They follow the timelines. There is a set timeline, say for 15 days, you are supposed to complete this particular activity. There is a mean, median, and mode, which is in fact being shown on the website itself. The mode and the median sometimes is as close to 365 days. So that means a particular activity is taking close to a year, and many times it goes even to 2 years as well. That is something like, say, I'll take the case of, say, energy department, because what we have seen in electricity connections and maybe the boiler departments. Now, these are the areas where the government can, I'm just trying to give a feedback so the government can take it into a positive spirit, that these areas, I see there is a lot of, I'll say some departments are absolutely doing very well. Some departments, they are not near to that. They do not follow the timelines. So there are a lot of violations. So you can see in the dashboard itself, they show the good point is that the data is transparent and it is honest. So that is something which the government has ensured it, that whatever is there, that is actually shown to the public. And so they are really interested in getting the feedback as well. So this is a good sign, but at the same time, there has to be some monitoring system so that whatever the dashboards are actually showing off, those feedbacks are taken from that dashboard, those things are worked out. So that is one particular area which is something which can be really looked into. At the same time, if you talk about the grievance redressal, now there is a timeline for say 15 days. What happens is there are, if you see across the departments, whether it is industries department or maybe say the pollution control or maybe the labor department, all these departments, they close the median or the mode is something around 400 or 300 days, which is very high. Now, a resolution of a grievance is something which should be done immediately. That is something which can be really looked by the concerned functions and the concerned department. The third point, Mr. Ajar, what you just touched about the compliance part, which is a self-certification. The government has initiated all the efforts, but then I really do not see anything where there are self-certifications which are taking place, or maybe the third-party certifications, because the government has engaged so many agencies. But then those agencies, if they are really tasked on, then probably the things could be much more better.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sharma. I will now turn my attention to a slightly different question. And Saurabh rightly pointed out that it's the first step is the acquisition of the land, right? And that's where the entire story really begins. And we have this limit of 250 square meters, and otherwise we have to go into the permission route in order to obtain a bigger parcel of land. And that results in an expanded timeline for projects which may not be suitable to investors who are looking to immediately tap on the market. Like, for example, I can tell you that the moment the first wave ended, the hospitality sector was in is doldrums. But people also realized the opportunity that the moment the COVID restrictions are lifted, there will be a boom in Uttarakhand. And a lot of queries came in the hospitality sector. So how is it, maybe we can address, Saurabh, sir, if you can address this very quickly, and then I'll ask Mr. Garg to share his views. How can we address this restriction which is in the interest of the state, as well as balance the interest of the investors with a shorter timeline in the permission route?
Right, that is a challenge actually the authorities are facing. So I would say we cannot, means the state cannot abolish something which is there in the act. But yes, we have relaxed it. So I would like to mention here it, like in the reform agenda only, we have covered it, like, this change of land use and getting a land purchased, the 154 section and 143, that is a CLU. So we have covered it under the in principle approval. So in state, we have two-tier system for getting the approval or establishing any or and operating any of the project. Like first, you need to get the in principle approval from the state authorities for, let's say, for beyond MSMEs, the chief secretary is the chairperson for the empowered committee, and at the district level for MSME units, DM is authorized to sanction that. So in principle approval, I would say it is kind of an insurance which is applicable to all the departments, which would be there to grant the statutory clearances or approvals going forward. The land purchase permission and the change of land use permissions are now the part of it. There is a notification now, government already had, it's been 2 years now, that if any of the investor or the project, the in principle approval is there, then by default it would be considered as the change of land use. Now, when it comes to the permission part, the permissions earlier used to be given at the government level, at the secretariat level, like session we say here. Now it has been delegated the powers to the DMs level. Now the DMs are also authorized, and in some of the chunks they feel that the files need to go to the state level. Then they send their notings and recommendations, and it goes. However, currently also it is taking a lot of time. So we have the cases we and the in the chief secretary and the secretaries, everyone is aware about the timeline, non-adherence of timelines. But there are some real issues, and government is trying to uh, again, is trying to devise a mechanism how quickly we can sort this out. But this is one part, very important part, and we have seen that significant relief have been provided to the investors in getting uh, land use change.
Thank you so much, Mr. Garg. I'll now turn to you and ask you this question as to what can the private players do in terms of facilitating the conundrum of the government in terms of balancing the interest of the state in protecting land parcels and at the same time making sure the investors get their fair share in a quick timeline to set up industries, or what is the experience that you have had with these questions?
Well, on the land use, one area, one issue which we have been taking up repeatedly with government is that generally the problem which is being faced by the industry is that the circle rate is very high, and so we have been taking up that the circle rate, which is for the industry, because as of now, the circle rate which they are charging, and there also there is a bit of an ambiguity actually, that how the what circle rate gets charged, and on the map approval also there is ambiguity so as to which authority is authorized to do the map approval, because there was some ambiguity on whether it will be done by CEDA or it would be done by the development authorities. So there were conflicting geos which came out, and so finally it has been decided that probably the development authorities would do the approval of the map. Now the problem which is being faced by the industry is that normally the development authorities, they are not updated with the industry needs, so they are more inclined towards the real estate and all those departments. So and their way of working obviously is totally different. So that is also one aspect which we have been taking up, that probably CEDA should be the agency, or at least the development authority follow the CEDA norms. So they should be probably sensitized on that, so that the development authorities, they follow the CEDA norms. So because in Uttarakhand already the industrial estates which are there, they are quite full. So now the only way how to do the development, I would say industrial development in the state, is to allow the industry to set up on a private land. Now on the private land, if the land use conversion is difficult, so land use conversion, what we feel, should be automatic, wherein if a person wants to set up a industry on a land, the whole of the process should be made automatic, because even if you give it to the DMs, so because whichever authority you give it to, whether it is DM or whether it is Sashan or whatever, the problems would always come, because wherever there are there is a contact point, or wherever there is a sanction to be given, there is always a chance of some lack or some delay or whatever. So what our request to the government is that they should consider this, because if there is an industry which is coming to the state, there would be employment, there would be increase in the GDP, and the overall development, and which is going to take place. So by facilitating this, and they should not take the land use conversion as a revenue driving activity, because right now the conflict which happens in the government is that how can we lower the circle rate, the revenue would go down, and likewise things. So they should not look at the revenue as a primary motive of this land use conversion, because ultimately if there is an industry, if there is overall development, there is a GST, there is a consumption happening in the state, so there is much more revenue which would be coming in the years. So what our request is that this process should be made automatic, and if somebody wants to set up an industry, the land use conversion should be made automatic, and self-certification should be allowed. So that is what our request consistently has been to the state. And whether the land map approval happens through the development authorities, they say that we take this fees which they take, which is very steep. In fact, when they allow an industry on a private land, the fees which they take is very steep, which rather prohibits the industry to come to Uttarakhand. It becomes one of the factor not to do so. Now, what they're looking at is the revenue which is coming from it. But overall, if you look at the overall scheme of things, and overall the revenue which the state is getting out of it is not something which is very big. So they should look at the larger picture. That is what our request is, that they should look at the larger picture of driving industrialization in the state. And once they do that, there would be an overall progress and overall prosperity, because the problem which Uttarakhand has is that the availability of land for putting new industry is obviously one of the major bottleneck, because the government industrial areas are all full. And unless they allow the industries to be put on the private land, and they facilitate whole of the procedure to do so. And in my opinion, the whole of the process should be made automatic. From if somebody wants to put an industry on a land, he should just inform, and the subsequent thing should be automatic. And right from the map approval to the circle rate and likewise things. So the government should look at the larger picture of industrialization and not the revenue as a motive. So that is what I feel. It would be a win-win for the industry. It would be a win-win for the overall development of the state, and it would be a win-win for the government as well.
Thank you. That was very well put, Mr. Garg, because I can tell you from my experience, which happened last month, is that we were executing a transaction of an existing industry buyout. And if you apply the circle rates that currently exist, there is no provision for an industrial rate in the circle rate list. And therefore, if you apply the commercial rates, the valuation was touching 60 crores. Whereas the actual market value of the entire thing is not more than 15, 16 crores. And therefore, currently there exists this gap between the industrial rates and commercial rates and those kind of things. One suggestion that I have from my end is to provide an industrial rate, which can be different from commercial rates. The second being that we can have a certain percentage of the circle rate under the automatic route that you suggested, where the land gets converted. So let's assume 1% or 5% of the current circle rate is the charge you pay for an automatic conversion. Therefore, the revenue aspect is also somehow managed. And more conversions will happen, which will lead to a larger stream of revenue rather than a single high transaction. Right? So those are again suggestions from my end. But now you raise the issue of skill power, manpower, GST services, and I will now turn to Mr. Sardana from Hero Motors. Sir, what do you think is the way we can bridge this gap between skilled manpower and new business requirements? How is it that, in the state, what are the kind of issues that we have faced in terms of manpower? And what can be our suggestions to the government within the private bodies to actually improve the skilled manpower in the state?
Thank you, Mr. Ajar, for asking this excellent question, actually, which is a critical and the significance for the ease of doing business. Actually, one is starting the business, and then is the running the business and the managing the business, and sustainable profitability as well as the sustainable ecological developments also. So it's an excellent question, and I agree with the thoughts which has been expressed by the other panelists on the policy advocacy and other things actually. And if you see this question on a bigger scenario actually, for the worldwide actually macroeconomics actually, the data of the GDP, if we say. So India, if you say in the manufacturing sector, 16 to 17% we are contributing from the manufacturing to the overall GDP of the nation, and 3.1% only at the global level in the manufacturing. While if you see our neighboring countries actually, in the Asia itself, China is contributing to the level of 29% of the world manufacturing. And Japan is contributing 7.5%, and similarly 17% is coming from the US. So what is the critical behind this? If you see the economy, this GDP of China in the 1985, India and China were on the same level actually of GDP. As on today, China is 5 times higher than our GDP actually. If you see that Japan is a war-torn country, they, with such a small population, such a small country actually, they have been the second largest economy with a small population for the almost 40 years across the world. So how this China has gone ahead, or how the Japan has gone ahead actually, and the China and we as a compare of the world canvas actually. So China is talked about, is named as one of the term which is called as a factory of the world. And we, India, are named as, tagged as back office of the world. Because our major contribution to the GDP is now coming up from the service sector, particularly the BPO, IT industry. So what is actually the driving force for this high contribution in these countries for the GDP on the world level or their national level actually? And the common is the competitiveness actually across the global level in their products and the services they are offering. And for the higher level of competitiveness in the services and the products, the critical and the significant factor is the human resource development, which is the skill building of the country as a whole. Here I would like to refer one of the statistics which was done by the International Labour Organization for the G20 countries, actually. So the European countries, Asian countries, this was shown. And they have categorized this skill into 4 buckets broadly. One is the less than the basic. Second is the basic. Third is the intermediate, and topmost the advanced level. The Japan, for which we are talking about, that they were the 40 years, they were the second largest economy. Now they're the third one actually. So what is their level in these 4 categories? Their 99% population, their 99% of the human resource falls into the category of intermediate and advanced level skills. Similarly, this, if we talk about the other developed country also, they are also very high ratio of the intermediate and the advanced skills. On the other hand, if we talk about the India, we as a society, we as a country, our composition is only 21% on the immediate level and the advanced level. And 48% is at the basic level only. And 31% is even below the basic level. So now we can think actually, if we relate what is the linear significance, what is the linear relationship between the skill and the business, skill and the economic output of these countries. So this is a critical factor actually, which you have thrown a light of this actually. So economic development for doing the business, the critical thing is the developing our own human resource. And second thing is that we have a huge potential actually. If you see the social media, recent example of the Twitter, the CEO, what largest organizations are being run by the Indian CEOs actually. People can that signifies actually that our potential is too large. There is something is there lacking in our ecosystem, that we are not able to nurture this potential and convert this potential to the business level for our own country. So with respect to your this point actually, some of the points which would like to, the steps which can be taken forward actually, as per my viewpoint actually, for striving for bridging the gap between the business requirements of the current and the future requirement and the skilled manpower. First is that we as an industry, sector wise, we should benchmark the international statistics of the respective sectors of the other countries actually, in terms of the quality and the cost efficiencies of the product and services those sectors are giving at the international level actually. With that statistics actually, we should be fixing a goal for us actually as a sector. For example, someone is at some sector of the China in the automobile components is at the 20%, for example, or 30%, 40%, where we are at the component level in the world actually maybe the 2% or 3% actually. So this 17% gap, what is our target and roadmap to bridge this gap across next couple of years down the line, 5 years, 10 years, or immediate 2 years, 1 year actually. So sector wise actually, we should benchmark, we should keep a goal for us actually. And then with this goal, then we should map the competency, the skills requirement, which are critical for the success of that particular sector in the product and the service actually. And then in those sectors actually, we industry leaders should come together actually, within the sector and across the sectors actually. Because here many sectors are there who has established and very advanced level of their business practices or the manufacturing practices or the operational excellence practices, and that can be adopted by the other industry actually. Like pharma can take good practice from the automobile, and the automobile can take from the pharma, or the pharma can take from the tourism, or tourism can take some of the practices from the other industries or the other sector actually. So then deriving this competencies map actually, where we are actually and where we should go actually, and for developing this skill system across the ecosystem, bringing all the stakeholders on board with a collaboration, bringing the seriousness of this topic and significance of this topic for increasing our economy, then we should not be reinventing the wheel. It is my suggestion that we should be searching out, we should be adopting the best practices which has been adopted by other countries like China, Japan, US actually, what they have done for the skill development of their human resource. Like in the China actually, that all stakeholders have agreed that industry, the state and academic issues, will come together and they will develop the curriculum for each and every role of the organization. Like somebody is working as a supervisor on one particular country, one particular sector, one industry actually. If he or she has to move up in the ladder in the next 5 years, 4 years, the section manager level, or section manager has to reach to the next level, the department head or the plant head or CEO. So they have made a curriculum for all these things and developed a good programs. All these people have to go to these evening classes or the weekend classes actually. So by that, this industry are getting support from the academy. While this industry and the academy and the state all has collaborated to develop this curriculum, it's not from one stakeholder. It's a joint effort actually that we can take it from there. One more step which I talk about the initiative was the zero defect, zero effect. And the essence of this was the Make in India, which was an excellent initiative, which promotes and inspires us to improve our total value stream to the higher level of efficiencies, higher level of effectiveness, which can be achieved through the high level of processes, higher level of technology integration, higher level of materials, which helps us that we should be developing our production mechanism, we're developing the total value stream that produces the defects with the no defects, ultimately with no adverse effect on the environment and the ecology. So it's an excellent initiative from the government of India. So where the most of the industry has participated on the zero defect initiative. But if you see from the statistics actually, where we are as a India from the Make in India perspective, recent data which has been published actually, our trade deficit had reached to the highest actually, is a 6.2%. That means we are importing more and exporting less. Why? Because our products are less acceptable at the international level, and we are not able to produce those kind of products or the machinery which is available across other countries. We know recent, for example, of the chip shortage. So whole world actually, whole automobile world is dependent on the one part of the globe actually. So here the customer is available for the four-wheeler, but four-wheeler industry is not able to churn out that level of production. And we can say we are dependent on some other country. Had it been foreseen, we could have developed our own capability to develop these kind of, as on today, our most of the raw materials of the pharma, where we are totally dependent on the China neighboring country actually. So what's critical in that actually? So if the nation has to grow, organization has to grow. The organization has to grow, people has to grow from the level of talent actually. Their development has to be from the structured roadmap with the all stakeholders. And coming to the second point is about the collaboration of the state and investor. So this can be, first is the all kind of associations we have in our industry or the business association. They also should come on the one platform actually as an industry, and then state, and then the academia. We all need to collaborate actually, which already has been established and proven in the country like China and Japan, which we have discussed earlier actually. Then the part through this partnership of industry and academia actually, we'll be able to develop this curriculum, not only in one segment, from the, even for the vocational training institutes, ITIs, diplomas, BTECs, everywhere actually. Because we know for improving our value streams, improving our efficiencies, we need to have the high level of automotive factories, high level of digitalizations. We have to have the artificial intelligence in our system, machine learning system. From where this will come actually? Whenever all academic institute also will come to the level where the industry is looking for the developed human resource actually. So industry one side has to put up a requirement, support to the academy on the other side actually can be giving a support to them, to the industry actually. So that we should be able to develop a future ready workforce for the India. And third point is that it is about the drain of the skilled manpower, I think. So to put up this point in another way actually, this should not be a concern, this should be seen as an opportunity. We should not be scared of that our manpower would be going to other states actually. I would say we should be the producer of the de-skilled manpower actually. Why we should not become Uttarakhand? Why we should not use this opportunity to convert into this as a business opportunity? And we know in the India, a lot of cities has developed as educational hubs. Some of the cities where a lot of people from the India are coming down to this place, one city, and staying there for 2 years, spending a lot of money with those education institutes and getting prepared for the entry into the professional colleges. So this small thought of the city has converted the city into a business city actually. So our industrial city, like Haridwar, like we have a Pantnagar, Udham Singh Nagar, why we can't convert these all cities into the hub for developing skilled manpower? So this is one of the opportunity for the investors to come for the development of the skilled manpower. And this skilled manpower will be readily available for the industry, not only at the national level. And we should be saying we are proud of that, exporting our skilled manpower at the international scale. Why not? We should be, because other countries who are struggling with the aging manpower, and we have a demographic dividend of the young population. So one side we are struggling with the unemployment. So this all problem can be solved, and our people can be getting employment. If not available in the India, they can be getting employment other side, other parts of the world. So from there, the money will be coming to India, and this will be on the perpetual prosperity also. So this can be a big business opportunity also, and support to the industry, support by the industry, support to the industry, support to academic institutes, and support by the academic institutes actually. So we can have our own Uttarakhand Skill University or Uttarakhand some kind of societies actually who are particularly focusing on the skill actually as a revenue also. So we talk about the conclusion. If we say we have a lot of good pockets in the country which are excellent in their practice actually in the manufacturing area to become globally competitive. So this can be realized through leveraging of the technology and the processes actually. And ultimately this can be managed by the people. We talk about the process actually. So looking at the total value chain from the designing of the product and delivering to the customers through this total value stream, if we develop this with the higher level of processes which have the least waste, efficient processes, effective processes, we can reach the goal if we are set up for our industry, our sector, our own business, our own company actually. And technology addresses the all kind of tools and techniques and all kind of hardware and software actually. And particularly we see the digitalization, the information management system as on today actually. So this can be facilitated and managed only and only by the people only actually. So organization is nothing but the people, country is nothing but the people only actually. So right time, right place, and the right people actually. This equals to success for our own company, our own industry, own sectors, and the country as well. So in a short statement, if I describe correctly, the human is the dimension of the process improvement model. Ultimately for the future, if we keeping as a optimistic or realistic targets, but we keep for our country. So I say this is one of the critical aspects you have touched upon, and we all together, we can all come together actually to collaborate to reach to the next level, highest level of the skill development, the human resource development. Thank you very much. Back to you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Sadana. I think there was a very passionate and very well outlined thought as to how all of us can grow together. I'll quickly turn to Ms. Rawat to give us some perspective on how Invest India is looking at the issue of skilled manpower. And then I'll quickly turn to Mr. Saurav to conclude with how we see all these issues in a nutshell from the perspective of the authorities. Mr. Rawat.
Thank you, Jar. See, skill is one of the biggest requirements whenever, companies coming, amongst land and utilities. But unless they have people to be actually carrying out their work, no business can be that successful. And we understand that it's also important for the overall economic growth to have to ensure there is employability and so for this very reason, in fact, as you know, that we are one of the youngest nation in the world, and being the youngest nation, we will continue to be for the next 30-40 years continue to be the youngest in the world. So the government has realized the importance of having skilled workforce, and for that very reason we have set up a dedicated ministry for skill development and entrepreneurship. What the government has also done is through their flagship scheme of Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, which they're implementing through the National Skill Development Council, they have brought in the industry on board to one, identify the gaps in skill and the requirements from the industry. And this is where we also urge the industry to come in and help the government in identifying any other skills that are required. As of now, they have set up 37 sector skill councils, and we are getting a lot of good feedback, especially in the sectors like leather, food processing, and so on. So those sector skill councils, what they are doing is they are one, identifying the gap in skills and the requirement from the industry. They are also not only bridging the gap by skilling and training the people, they are certifying them. So one, on the people side, they're training. Two, they are creating a pool of employable resources, and they have gone beyond to the point that there are portals which are created to help employers scan and recruit through those these technology portals. They are providing all of these training in various regional languages, and all of this is being done through the NSDC. And of course, I'd also like to highlight here that another trend that is coming up is, a lot of the people are looking at entrepreneurship and starting up with their startups, and with the launch of the startup mission, Uttarakhand very quickly acted on this, and they came up with this startup policy. And this trend is very heartening to know that it's not just coming from the tier 1, tier 2 cities, but if you look at the 13 districts of Uttarakhand, each of those districts has at least one recognized startup, and this is just a recognition from the Central Ministry of Commerce and Industry, but there are many more startups. Hence the youth of, I would say, the state, they are also aware of the kind of skills. They are looking for opportunities, and the government, including the center and state, are here to offer all the support that is needed for supporting these entrepreneurs, as well as ensuring the workforce is skilled. Right.
Thank you so much, Mr. Saurav. If you're still there, yes.
Right.
Your concluding thoughts on so many things have been put on your plate. I understand the industry is urging to, make their suggestions to the government on various aspects. Your concluding thoughts on everything that has been said so far before I hand over the chain of command to Mr. Sharma again.
Right. So first of all, Priyaji rightly recognized, and everyone else, the government of India also. So we have a successful startup ecosystem we have built on, and we are continuously developing it. We have a good startup policy in the state. And now we are encouraging the more and more youth towards the entrepreneurship. So it attracts two domains basically. One is scaling is required, then the another one is the market access. We need to provide them. The employment can also be related with this. Now, if I talk as a facilitator, what the industries department does through its single window system, we do have the single window system, and we calculate, we actually gather the requirements of the skilling manpower. Whenever the investor comes in, we seek the details of the skilled, unskilled, or semi-skilled manpower requirements for the particular industry or she is going to set up here or operating, or even if for the existing industry they are in expansion plans. So we gather that data. So we analyze that, and we share it with the skills department as on today on a periodic basis, so that they can map it with their skilling programs. They also get the programs from and fundings from the government of India. The state skilling department is also conducting various multiple programs to support the youth in getting at the right place. So that is one part. Another part is the state government is also trying to get on board with the private aggregators in terms of the skilling and creating bridging those gaps, because since many of the times many are the tasks which government bodies and authorities are unable to perform in a professional manner. So the state is in process of onboarding those private aggregators in India. So rest of the things, the panelists, rewarded panelists have already said their valued opinions, their observations, their suggestions. I have jotted down few of them for my actionables. So I'm going to put them as a MOM because we have to follow the government proceedings. And I'm definitely going to talk with the the concerned departments with those issues, whether it is with the circle rates, whether it is timeline adherence in electrical inspectorate, or getting electricity connections, getting the labor licenses, or getting environment clearances. Periodic compliance is also a major concern. I would also like to highlight here that we have also undertaken the regulatory compliance burden program, which has been led by the Government of India itself. Currently, we have reduced approximately 152 compliances of multiple departments. 15 departments were there. So most of them we have already covered under Ease of Doing Business program. But yes, we are identifying, in a process of identification of multiple compliances of different departments, getting towards the self-certification and third-party certification, so that investors should use more of those provisions and the facilities available in the state. So these are the core things and the long-term reforms are definitely there, but it will take some time to execute. Thank you.
Thank you for the valuable, outlines that you have given on what we can currently do and how you intend to take this forward. We hope that as a body of people with the right kind of aim in making Uttarakhand grow, we can all work together to these ends. If I can just ask all my co-panelists to quickly give their concluding remarks in 1 minute or so, because we just have about 5-6 minutes left. So, Mr. Sharma, the chairperson of the Uttarakhand Council, if I can start with you, sir, if you can give us your concluding remarks in a nutshell, and where do we see Uttarakhand going from here?
First of all, Mr. Ajar, I would like to thank you the way you have taken up this session, and in fact, the way you were discussing and then trying to consolidate the things. So it was really good, and in terms of getting, I'll say, the views of everybody and then assimilating together and then presenting is not an easy job. So well done, very good. But at the same time, I would also like to thank Mr. Vikas Garg for organizing this event. I'll say he was the prime factor who was behind this event. He ensured tie-up with the government and then ensuring that this webinar happens. So thank you, Mr. Vikas Garg, as well. And then ASSOCHAM, of course, they were the people who were supporting in terms of having this seminar. So that is one part. But at the same time, because this being the first webinar, so it becomes much more important that this seminar at least sets up a theme in terms of how we are going to move forward in this particular journey. Ease of doing business is one of this part. And in that, ease of doing this business is not a one-day job or maybe a year, 1 or 2 years job. It is something which is a journey which requires, I'll say, two things. One is the policy framework, and then the second thing is in terms of implementation. The policy framework has been done very well by the government, and in fact, would like to applaud for it. But at the same time, I think what is more important is now there are small bits and bits as well as there are implementation things which needs to be taken care. So when I say implementation, there are things which have been implemented in terms of systems, but then there are certain things when you see on the ground, those are the areas which require a closer look now. So probably the government also requires support and feedbacks. During this pandemic time, there were a lot of issues in terms of getting the feedback, and then there was already a turmoil. So probably that's the reason why we slipped from 9th to 11th, because and that's which has happened significantly across the states as well. So Uttarakhand, but still retained its position. 9th or 11th, it hardly matters anything, because 1 or 2 position is something on a scale of so many points. It is something which can always happen. But the state is really doing very good in terms of ease of doing business, ensuring that the business comes over here. The important thing which needs to be maintained is the ecological balances, because state has got a vast area of forest, which is close to around 80% or so, and then the plain area is hardly around 25 to 30%. So within that 25 to 30% is something which is where the industries can really get into or grow into, because the hilly areas, they require a different kind of systems and terrains are there. So the road and network is already good with the adjoining states. The state also enjoys close proximity to the center and the NCR. So it has its own benefit. So in terms of literacy rate or maybe the educational institutes, they're already well hung over here. So they can really use this potential of the state and then help in terms of whatever industries can come over here, and at the same time the tourism and the horticulture, which can be helpful in the areas of the hilly terrains. So that's how the state should be looking into, and was a very good conversation that has happened in this meeting.
Thank you so much, Mr. Garg. If I can now ask you to give your concluding thoughts.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ram. In fact, today's webinar was, I would say, very well moderated by you. And in fact, you have been able to, I would say, take up all the issues in a very effective way. And thank you for moderating the session today. And I would also like to thank all the participants, Ms. Priya Rawat, Chairman Dr. Surinder Kumar Sharma, and Mr. Yashpal Sardana, Hiromoto Corp, and other participants for participating in today's session. And I would like to thank the government officials, Mr. Saurabh and Mr. Nautiyal, for being present at a very short notice today with the seminar. I think the issues which have been taken up are very relevant. And in fact, Uttarakhand, as Mr. Sharma has also said, today when I see Uttarakhand, after the connectivity getting improved of Uttarakhand, I think Uttarakhand is best poised, because it is 3 hours from Delhi, and I would say 2.5 hours from Chandigarh, or 3 hours from Chandigarh. So with this, I would say, wonderful connectivity which the state has now, with the cheaper electricity tariffs which it has, the availability of electricity also being so well, the overall industrial environment being very conducive to the industry, very good IR situation which is prevalent in the state, the very good law and order situation which is prevalent in the state, and the overall conditions being very livable, because you can see the kind of the pollution, the kind of the because generally in our industrial towns, the livability becomes a problem. The families, they don't want to stay there. So from that standpoint, Hardwar, or I would say Uttarakhand or Dehradun or even Udham Singh Nagar now is very much livable, wherein you have educational institutes, you have hotels, you have for recreation places as well, because all these are also required for the families, because senior executives, when they come to work in a company, they all of them, they require all these things, and these things, they become a very, I would say, important uh, things when you choose an employment nowadays, at least. So from that standpoint, uh, Uttarakhand is very well poised as of now, and with its 11th position on the EODB and the great emphasis which is being put by the government of Uttarakhand, we are sure that in times to come, the Uttarakhand would be doing very well on the industrialization side. And as mentioned by several speakers, there are certain issues and there are certain I would say, aspects which need to be addressed. And I would say these are in all the states, because it is about, cultural change which comes into because, in our state of scheme of things and in the culture which is prevalent, to change that culture overnight is not possible. And that cultural change would come gradually. Cultural change when it comes to the users, that means the industry, and on the government side as well. So both sides, they have to bring about the cultural change, like Mr. Nautiyal said, that the industry also has to patiently use the system, the single window system, which has been made available, and not try to look for shortcuts, because generally people are used to trying to use the shortcuts and trying to get things done through those other means, which if they really use the system, probably that would not be required at all. So, and also on the government side as well, now the government officials, the departments are becoming more and more used to the IT and the online systems which have been created, because I can, by my own personal experience, share that initially, in the initial years when it was implemented, they did not know what is happening. They said, हमें नहीं मालूम क्या वो क्या online system है, हमारे को तो file दे जाएंगे. That used to be the attitude. Now they say, don't भाई हमको file देने से नहीं होगा. Don't give the file to us. You have to file it online. Only then the things would move. So that obviously, that shift has happened, and that and obviously, for the government officials also and the departments also, down the line there would be they are being trained, and there would still be a lot of training which would be required, and system would also evolve by the feedback. And there have been a lot of work which has been done. We congratulate the state officials and the state government for that. And obviously, it's an ongoing process, and we hope that in times to come, the things will be much better. So thank you all, and that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll just quickly ask Mr. Sardana and Ms. Rawat to give their concluding thoughts, and then I'll hand over to Avinash for the closing remarks. Yes, Mr. Sardana, please.
Yeah, first of all, my sincere thanks to the ASSOCHAM for conducting this kind of meeting and this webinar, actually, whereby you were able to bring all the stakeholders on one platform that we all can understand from each other, actually. And thanks to Mr. Sharma and Mr. Vikas Garg from the Mr. Nautiyal's office, and top of it, actually, a very excellent moderator, actually, Mr. Ajar, you bring in on the panel, actually. So he could throw out the critical questions, actually, by which he was able to take out the deep level of insight also, that what we should be doing, actually, all stakeholders, actually. And one thing I would say as a conclusion, actually, in Uttarakhand, as mentioned by Mr. Sharma and Mr. Vikas, that is well poised, actually, as of today, with all kind of connectivity, rail, road, air, all kind of connectivity. So this is the best opportunity, actually, now. So we all leaders, actually, from the industry, from the academy, from the government side, if we all are coming together, certainly we can take Uttarakhand forward the multiple level of economy, actually. So this is my thought, actually. So thank you very much to all the panelists. Very deep level of understanding the insights they could put up. Actually, I could learn from these things, actually. So thank you very much. to Mr. Ajar and Mr. Akshat for holding this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Rawat, I'll just quickly turn to you.
Thank you, Ajay, and thank you all the panelists. It was an absolute pleasure listening to all of you. I will just conclude by bringing everyone's attention to the 4 areas which have been the focus of this government in the last 5 to 7 years. One is the new processes that have been brought about, which is, if you not many would be knowing that both the center and the state government in the last 4-5 years have brought about more than 15,000 policy interventions, and which has actually contributed to this improved ease of doing business, which both India as well as the state of Uttarakhand have been talking about. One, I've already talked about the national single window, where we've centralized the entire process of the approval. The second one is the Indian Industrial Land Bank System, which is a GIS-based portal. So one of the challenges faced by companies is for looking for investment, and we were talking about the challenges in the land policy as well. What Uttarakhand has also done is they have integrated the industrial parks into the India Industrial Land Bank, and so far what we've done is we have mapped 6 lakh hectares of land on this entire big portal. We have about 4,000 parks listed. Uttarakhand has listed their 7 industrial parks, of which 4,000 hectares has been mapped. So anybody from the audience, any company looking for investment should come onto this portal looking for industrial land for the new facility. There is about 332 hectares of land available. The third thing is when the process is clear, when the land is available, they would want to know about the investable opportunities. And for this, we have also created an India investment grid, which is essentially a menu of investable projects. And it is the only government of India portal which is listing both public as well as private investment projects. We have 444 projects of Uttarakhand listed with the value of about 15 billion on India investment grid. In fact, the national infrastructure pipeline of Ministry of Finance is also hosted on the India investment grid. The Honorable Prime Minister a few months back had launched the PM Gati Shakti, which was essentially multimodal connectivity program to integrate all the government departments together to ensure there is a holistic development of these projects, as well as there is synchronization in the planning part. Last year, 2 high-powered mechanisms were established. One is the Empowered Group of Secretaries, which is being headed by the Cabinet Secretary, the senior most bureaucrat, and the group is ensuring timely clearances of projects at the center as well as state. The other mechanism is the Project Development Cell, which is set up in 29 central ministries to attract investments. Each ministry will be responsible for creating a project which will have all the approvals and availability of land, everything, detailed project report, all at one place for the investors to continue. So this is what the focus has been on, introducing new processes to ensure the experience of the investor is a better one. The second area of the focus of the government has been on introducing new sectors. What has been done is now FDI has been opened up to new sectors. In the last 5-7 years, we have opened up FDI in sectors like defense production, insurance, medical devices, construction, and railway. In fact, for the state of Uttarakhand, medical devices as well as defense production has been a focus one, and they have been increasingly focusing on this sector to attract investment. We have also introduced the production linked incentive scheme in 13 sectors with an outlay of about 2 lakh crores, and it is this PLI scheme is expected to be attracting 500 billion worth investment in these 13 focus sectors. The objective is to ensure there is, we have domestic capabilities in terms of manufacturing, and we are able to create global champions in manufacturing. The third focus area has been in creating new infrastructure. I already talked about the national infrastructure pipeline of the Ministry of Finance, where in order to achieve our target of $5 trillion of GDP by 2025, we estimate that we need investment of about 1.4 trillion in infrastructure. And this is for this reason we have launched the NIP, and the pipeline is essentially being developed by Niti Aayog in consultation with all the line ministries responsible for infrastructure development. We've also launched the asset monetization plan, which will not only act as a funding mechanism, but will also, sort of bring the public, the private players into with the new models like the infrastructure investment trusts and the REITs, which will bring strategic investors on one common platform. The fourth and final area of the focus of the government has been on new mindset, as Vikas was mentioning, that this cultural change cannot happen overnight, and we need to gradually improve and change, work on the mindset not just of the investors but also for people who have been working in this area. And we've always been talking about red carpet for from red tapeism to red carpet for investors, and for that very reason, both at the center and the state level, we have focused on creating bodies that will ensure handholding of investment for the investors. We at Invest India, the National Investment Promotion Agency, we provide the entire support that you need right from the time when you're thinking of investing into the country to the time through your entire investment life cycle. And at the state also, we have the IPFC, the Investment Promotion and the Facilitation Cell, under the Directorate of Industries. And very interesting, Uttarakhand has been a real champion in all of these four sectors that I've mentioned. They've always been one of the early movers. We've been working with the state for quite some time to promote it as one of the most promising and upcoming destinations for investors to consider. And why not? It is a very young state. It's just a little over 20 years old, but it has grown at a rapid pace, and much of its growth has been led by the manufacturing sector, primarily auto, pharma, and food processing. And this has all been possible because of the kind of policies and reforms that the state has brought about. They are ranked #1 in terms of doing business amongst the hilly state, and #1 in terms of export preparedness index of 2020. And coming from the state myself, I can say that Uttarakhand has immense potential and has favorable conditions to attract investments, especially in the manufacturing sector. And I assure you of all my full support in facilitating your investments in the country as well as in Uttarakhand. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Awad, for beautifully capturing the initiatives of the government and the potential of the state. From my end, now that I have managed to earn praise forcefully by making everyone talk about me, hand it over to Avinash. Please, I'm very grateful for the invitation to be here and for learning, like Mr. Sadana said, a lot of facts about my own state that I didn't know till now. So thank you very much.
So thank you very much, sir. Let me convey my sincere thanks to our session moderator, Dr. Ajay Rao, for very beautifully conducting this session and making it very informative for all of us. I would like to convey my sincere thanks to all our panelists, starting from Mr. Sudhir Nautiyalji, Director Industries, Government of Uttarakhand, Mr. Saurabh from Department of Industries, Government of Uttarakhand, Ms. Priya Rawat from Invest India, Mr. Yashpal Sardana from Hero Motocorp, and our leadership, our chairman of this council, Mr. Surendra Kumar Sharma, and co-chairman, Mr. Vikas Garg, for making this event happen. We are very grateful to you, sir, for sharing your views with us. And this is just a beginning of this our activities in Uttarakhand, and we are quite hopeful that we will do many such more activities in next year. So thank you very much, and thank you to all the participants for attending this session. And we look forward to have you with us in our next program. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you.